Welcome into Extra Time, and I am happy to say the band is back together. Adam, Jahmai, Sophia, the trio of all trios, instead of a duo, whether it's me and Jahmai, me and Sophia, Jahmai and Sophia. No. The whole gang is here. I'm happy. Are you guys happy?
Let's go. Well, now I'm happy, but I was very upset. I was kind of on the same emotional wavelength as you were just a moment ago in full disclosure to everybody because of your technical difficulties. But my bag was lost en route to Toronto, hoping to get it later this morning, wearing, well, not exactly 24-hour old clothes because I did put these clothes on later in the afternoon. But if you see me on the telecast here tonight for game one in Toronto with this very shirt, you'll understand that I have not retrieved my bag. So that's got to be up there with some of the more frustrating things to happen. Losing your bag, losing your cell phone, and there's probably a couple other ones up there that are pretty high on the list. But hoping to get some clothes, some toiletries, uh, some different
You know,
necessities that you need to travel.
you're actually hoping, because I'm in Toronto still, that I'm gonna drive down and chauffeur you around
Yeah,
to Porter Airlines to get your stuff. Yeah, so Jemai's hoping for that. We gotta discuss this offline. Either way, we had plans to hang out and see each other, but it looks like I'll be Ubering him around Toronto, getting him his stuff back. But I get the pain. I get the pain of
yeah.
losing your bag and then trying to be on camera with nothing. So I might do that. Maybe we can update you in episode whatever next week is. 8, whatever. We can give you guys an update on how the adventure goes together.
You've already lost count.
I did.
I'm
I'm
kind
fully
of
expecting you
confused
to
actually
get me
because
around.
we just talked last week's episode, Sophia, when Jemai wasn't with us. We were talking about how great it was to fly charter with the team.
Yeah, well, I'm
and then,
Yeah.
confused.
then next week, you lose your
So
luggage.
yeah. Well, this
But
has
you
nothing to do with.
didn't do charter.
Yeah, so exactly. So this wasn't I wasn't on the Red Sox charter. I tried to support the local economy here in Toronto and fly commercially because the Red Sox were playing Sunday Night Baseball against the Yankees in the series finale, and it's no point in me traveling with them and getting in here at 2:30, 3 in the morning when I could just come in earlier because I wasn't working. We don't telecast those games because they're national TV exclusive. So, in an effort to be more mindful of my mind and body, luckily the offer was given to me, and so I flew commercially yesterday. Got here like at 8:30 at night, kind of cruised in, thinking I was going to be great in this great mindset, ready to tackle the series after a couple of days off. And next thing you know, it's me and three other people, and I'm just sitting there as the what do you call that thing? The carousel, whatever
Yeah,
it's going
yeah.
around, and no more bags are coming off, and I'm just like, what's happening? And then the guy's like, did you have a bag? Can I help you, sir? I'm like, yeah, I got a bag supposed to be coming off here. He's like, yeah, if your bag is not here, it's not coming. I was like, well, what do you mean it's not coming? He's like, yeah, the Porter Airlines counter is around the corner. You could talk to that woman over there. I said, all right. So now it was me and these
Wow,
other
what an
people in tow, and we
absolute
all walk
disaster,
in.
huh? I mean,
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And then yeah, so I mean they lose the bag and she's saying, I'm
Last
sorry, we've had
week.
issues all day from Boston and Montreal and Ottawa. There's a couple flights who like there's literally 50 bags in this room and I'm like, is my bag here? And she's like, no, these were bags that were lost on earlier flights today. We've been short staffed, yada yada yada. I'm like, well, when is my bag coming here? Because I'm only going to be here for 3 nights and I'm going to another city. So it's not like I live here. I need my bag
Right,
ASAP. And she's
right.
like, okay, I'm sorry, sir. We're doing our best. I'm like, I'm not upset with you. I'm just frustrated with the situation. So she was very nice. And she's like, I'm going to send an email to Boston right now. Get your stuff on the first flight out this morning. And I think she might have delivered because I checked, called. They said, we think your bag is en route. I said, great. Hopefully, I have everything that I packed in there because I did see a story recently maybe I don't know a few months ago about like this situation happening and like couriers stealing stuff from people and not getting their bags back. So I was freaked out. So I hope that all my gear's in there because I got about I don't know $500 worth of sneakers in that bag.
Oh, yeah. We want that. I never heard of anyone stealing bags, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if it's
I'll
not
send you the story.
protected by the airline. Okay, send me the story. That's I actually have. I know we're not going to spend too much time talking about lost bags, but I have first of all, I've never heard it happening between like quick flights, like Toronto to Boston or Boston, Toronto, Ottawa, whatever, an hour and a half flight. You're not changing planes. I've never heard of anything like that happening. Obviously, I've heard of it internationally when you're switching flights and this and that. I went to Brazil many years ago and I had a friend. I would never go really go by myself, but I went on this really remote town that has like 1,000 people in it. And it was a 3-hour drive from one of the main airports. I forget which airport I even landed in, but it was a main big airport, 3-hour drive through like the back country. And I had a friend there who was a native, which is why I like felt comfortable going, whatever. But I too did not have my bag, do not speak a lick of Portuguese. And they basically like
Obrigado.
my friend. Yeah, that's all I know. Obrigado, exactly. Fala, maybe fala. I guess I don't even know if that's please, thank you, something. But yeah, no, I went to this remote town and we were calling the airline who kept kind of saying sorry, it's out of our control because there was a crazy weather delay, and in order to get to where I was going on time, I switched airlines. It's a whole long story, but I was like, my stuff is gone. Like no one is driving at 3 hours through the backcountry. I basically lived off of a bathing suit and like a sundress and a toothbrush that I bought, but spent like all my vacation fighting it. And then one day, 2 days left on my trip, the bag is sitting in front of my hostel, like this tiny little beach hut, and they somehow paid this guy to drive 3 hours. I wasn't expecting it. It was just right in front of my hostel sitting there. So I got my stuff back on the last couple days, but it's the best feeling in the world when it's just stuff and there are worse things. But when you're,
Yeah.
you're on vacation, you buy things to go, you're expecting it's your money, you feel played, getting it back, even though I didn't barely even use it anymore. It was a good feeling, obviously.
Yeah. So I have that empty feeling right now. I'm hoping things change. My fortune changes.
Man, I'll
Okay,
tell
well,
you what,
maybe
guys.
I'll just drive you around. Yeah.
I've never lost my bag.
No, man, knock
Never.
on
But
wood.
what
Knock
do
on wood.
you?
Not once. Yeah, I know.
You
I've
know,
doomed myself by saying that out loud and putting it out in the universe, but I have legitimately never had an issue with a lost bag. I've had issues with canceled flights and being bumped off of flights. I covered Patriots Eagles in Philly back in 2019, and I usually fly out of Providence because I'm like, where I live is closer to Providence than it is in Boston. So I try to hop on those flights. There aren't as many direct flights out of TF Green, but I was able to get out, go to Philly, and then cover the game. Next day, I get bumped off the flight, and they don't have any flights in the near future. Maybe, I was trying to fly out in the morning. The next flight was like 8 o'clock at night or whatever it was. I'm like, I'm not waiting at the airport all this time. So I ended up renting a car and just driving
Oh,
back from Philly to Boston, and it took
that's not
like 6
terrible.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't bad at all. And so, yeah, but outside of that, guys, I've never had those issues, but I definitely will now that I've said it out loud. But anyway,
Exactly.
Jemai,
Now you
sorry
can put
for
it
your
out there,
troubles,
man.
my man. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
for your
Thank you. This is
troubles,
the
but
first time they lost my bag.
oh, so this is the
So,
first time this happened to you.
yeah, first time. First time this has happened. That's why, like I said, I saw that story a while ago about, couriers taking people's luggage and personal items. And now I have a new fear unlocked.
Yeah,
new
new
fear
fear
unlocked.
unlocked. Yeah. Last time I saw you though, Jemai, was at Fenway Park, which is not
Oh,
uncommon.
yeah.
However, what is uncommon is the fact that we were actually playing on the field, and we were playing in the Boston versus New York media game. 9-3 win for Boston, which was nice because the last time I played 2 years ago, we got absolutely smoked at Fenway. I didn't play in the game last year. And so for people at home, basically every year we have, oh yeah, there I am in the catcher's gear. Nice. Every year we have a Boston versus New York media game. When the Yankees are in town for a series, we pick a date, or they basically come to an agreement on a date where we can play at Fenway. And then later in the year, they play in New York. So this year, I was back in the mix, had a good game, was catching. and we came up with a victory, Jahmai. It was a pretty good game.
Yeah, we did, man. I mean, can we just pull that catching photo back up again? I got to take another look at this. I mean, look at this is
Ooh.
sexy. I mean, come on, man. You look good. That's what I'm talking about playing the part. And I wish I would have grabbed some photos of myself also playing the outfield there, but I feel good about the win. Of course, I'm a team player, but I've been steaming because game 2 of this home and home series is not until September. So we'll be playing at Yankee Stadium against the New York Yankees baseball press. We'll be having that contest to take the bragging rights. But I've been steaming about a play that has been killing me. I couldn't make in the outfield, and it was one of
Tell
those
me, tell us what
it was one of
happened.
those direct line. Well, I'm about to explain it. It was one of those line drives that came directly at you. So I made the cardinal mistake of it as an outfielder taking steps forward instead of backwards.
Mm.
So once I did that, I was almost a dead duck, but because of my great athleticism, I almost recovered, and the ball just kind of nipped off my glove there, and it cost one of our ace pitchers, Nesson photographer Bobby Swan, a couple more outs. So I had to, he picked me up, striking out the side 1 inning, and I just had to tell him, man, I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry, I should make that play. I should have made it, and I was a little bit salty about that, but I'll be able to redeem myself hopefully come September.
Is that accurate, Adam? Is that how
So
you saw it from your position?
yeah, so
Here's the inflating a
so
little.
I,
obviously
I don't I don't I don't like this. Yeah, wait. Did I
Yeah, yeah.
miss tell the story? I mean, you tell me, Adam. I
no,
mean, you
no.
saw it.
Well, yeah. So as the catcher, of course, what I love about the position and what I loved about playing the position is that you have the entire field in front of you and you can
Yeah.
see things unfold and you can kind of see how things are going to play out sometimes before they happen. So when that ball came off the bat and I could see Jahmai in center field and I could see him coming in and I'm watching the trajectory of the ball, I'm like, oh man, this thing's going over his head.
Jeez,
And it did.
jeez.
And I was like,
Come on.
oh man, I kind of turned around. I felt badly for you, my man. But,
Unreal.
those things
Unreal.
happen, right? Those things
Yeah, I
happen
know.
over the
I got,
course of.
I got, I got the ultimate respect for these guys. Adam, he played college baseball, and my baseball career ended when I was about 10 years old in Little League. So it's been about 30 years since my last retirement, and I decided to come out of it. And you got to be able to read these plays in the moment, and these things kind of reactionary, and they come with reps and repetition and time. And I haven't seen a ball tail off the bat like that for about 25 years. So it was misread. It was a
Eh,
misread for me,
Did
and
Yeah.
did any of you
Yeah.
guys
I'll
get
be
That,
on
better.
that,
base?
that, that's completely understandable. But,
Did any of you guys get on base or score?
Oh yeah. So I did go 1 for 2, smoked the single, also struck
Nice.
out.
Okay.
So it shows up in the Adam is you got kind of kissing your teeth there, man. What's going on? What's going through your mind? What's going through your mind? You don't like my single that I legged
I,
out?
no, man. I'm trying to think of. I actually didn't see it. To be honest with you, I was trying to think
Okay, yeah, you were
about it.
probably
But you,
getting
so
ready,
you
getting
can.
ready to
I mean, you
catch.
could say that there was like 110 miles an hour off the bat if you wanted to, because
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
see it. So,
No, yeah.
but yeah,
So, some of the
I had a couple hits as well, a couple RBI. Threw it like well. I threw a guy out, but he was called safe. How about that? I'll put it that way.
yeah, we didn't
Oh
have the
boy.
replay. That's true. He showed out that arm. He did. I mean, excellent game by AP. I think he caught about 5 innings, maybe majority of the game.
I did.
So, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. It was smoking hot out there that day, and you got all those catcher's gear, and you're down there in the crush. And Adam was old school. He's not the one leg, the new analytics guy. He was 2 knees down, calling the signs with the fingers, no pitch calm. Just excellent, bravo job by the captain back there.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. It actually, I want to get you involved in this, Sophia, because I want to get your perspective. So, you know, we sort of take for, I think we've mentioned this over the course of the podcast, that we sort of take for granted what we do for a living and the access that we have and the places that we get to travel to and see in ballparks and arenas and things like that. But to actually play on the field at Fenway was awesome. I've had the opportunity to do it a number of different times, not just the media game, but some other games over the years when I was actually playing baseball consistently. I had an all-star game at Fenway Park, which was awesome. I've taken batting practice at Fenway. It is truly special. And Sophia, I wanted to ask you if you had a similar experience. Maybe it could have been playing in a game on a field, or skating in a rink, or just being at a venue, having the access that others haven't been fortunate enough to have. Is there anything that stands out to you?
Oh yeah. I'm going to answer this a couple different ways, but I have played on Fenway. I don't know what we don't need to talk about it because I don't remember much about it. And you guys just talked about playing on Fenway. I think Nesson was doing that. I thought that was super cool, like just being out on the field. But because I cover hockey, I did get to skate at the Garden on Garden Ice once, and it was
Wow.
for, I believe, a girls hockey clinic that the Bruins put on, a community clinic. And the Bruins, actually the NHL is so good at making sure that they start at the grassroots, kind of making more community programs available because they want to grow the game, obviously. But the Bruins are a big part of that. So it was a women's or a girls and a women's hockey clinic. And I got to skate on Garden Ice, which was super cool. But outside of that, something I get to do most game or every game when I'm reporting, not hosting, that still, like, not once has it gotten dull. Not once have I kind of taken it for granted. Not once am I not on cloud nine, but is being on the bench for warmups. It is my favorite thing in the world. And every time I'm out there, I'm like, damn, I love my job. And I don't have to remind myself that I love my job, but that is my favorite part, which obviously, Jahmai, you haven't been on a bench for hockey warmups, but we'll talk about it with Adam. I love looking at just the guys skate around, their routine. You can feel, even though they're not going that fast, right? Like compared to the game, sometimes the way they skate by is so fast, it like blows my hair. I love the music. I love the fans. I love the crowd. I just love being on the bench. It's my favorite part of the game. I don't know if that fires you up, but for me, it definitely fires me.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. It's really cool. It is because, when you're out on the bench, you get out there. So to give people an idea of the sort of timeline, we have the pregame show on Essence. So for a 7 o'clock puck drop, we have an hour pregame show at 6 o'clock, and then our bench interview happens at 6:30. Like just after 6:30, right? So they take warm ups, and we get out on the bench about 15 minutes or so before they take the ice for warm up. So we're standing out on the bench, and we're doing mic checks and things like that. But it's also an opportunity to look around at the crowd and see the arena and take in all the energy as people go to their seats and the music's playing. And then as you get closer, you kind of, more people start popping out on the bench, whether it's, some of the staff and other folks. And then you hear the horn, right? And then if you're at the Garden, the Bruins are coming out and lights come on, and you see, actually the cool thing, Soph, that I like, especially at the Garden, is when you see him in the hallway on the jumbotron first,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the bass starts bumping, and
Yeah.
then you see him start to walk out, and then the horn, and then the pucks go flying out on the ice. It
Yeah.
is. You're right. You're spot on. It's so cool.
It is. It's
I
such a,
I
and
would
like
love to
doing the hair.
experience this.
Jahmai, we should be able to get you on one time.
Yeah.
You should get a pass, shadow for a little bit. You never know. We can pitch it and say we need to talk about it on extra time. So we can do that. You shadow us for a day, and then you can kind of get a taste of our job. And then I should shadow you guys, which I did one time with Jahmai. And actually, funny story, I don't know where we sit where were we, in the pit? Is that what it's called? The photog pit?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were there, and Jemai's like, man, if you're here for a home run, because different sports have different, places where you get an electric feeling, but like seeing the guys in the cart, and if you're there for a home run, just being able to experience that. And of course, I stayed and stayed and stayed. And then like 10 seconds after I walked out to go back up to studio, because the game was wrapping up, I was actually shadowing TC on hosting. I missed the home run, and Jemai's like, come back. You remember that, Jahmai? He said, come back.
Yeah.
I missed it. I missed everything.
Yeah.
So that would have been pretty electric. But but we got to get you on the bench because it's the music really. I mean, obviously the speed, the guys, and I love the team. So, I just love being there and also telling the story, like whatever story we get that morning, we get to tell it to the fans that are watching pregame. It's just so exciting. We got to get you on there, Jahmai.
I would love to do it. It sounds like a phenomenal experience. I'm trying to think now, like of anything that gets me going like that with baseball, and
What whole
I don't
team?
know if there's
What a
anything
walk
like
off?
that.
Because the walk off for
Oh, you
us
know
is in
what?
our studio, right? And you're on the
Yeah,
field, you're with the
yeah.
crowd, we're in the studio.
That's actually, I'm glad you said that because that's probably the thing for me that gets me going like that and kind of gets the juices flowing. I mean, aside from postseason baseball, that's just an electric environment. But walk-offs are pretty exciting because I mean, especially when it's like a walk-off home run, or I've experienced a walk-off grand slam once, which was like, what just happened? And you kind
Yeah.
of just reacting. There's like this euphoric feeling of the fans outside around you, but you have to like lock in and stay focused because you understand you have a job to do. And for me, that's like grabbing the winning player and like getting some type of insightful questions about their process, about how they were able to achieve what they just did. And usually that's me hopping out of that pit there, which is to the right of the Red Sox dugout, and like sneaking through this little small crevice and running on the field. So it feels like almost as if I experienced the walk off too, because I'm on there right when the guys are on there and they're celebrating, they're throwing water, seeds, bubble gum, what have you, whatever's at their disposal. So then I got to calm them down, reel them in, and you guys know, like when you cover professional sports teams, like when the game ends, you get a 10-minute grace period to cool down. So we just had
Yeah.
Alex Verdugo in town, and he had one of the more memorable ones, walk-offs that we had last year. And we probably can insert the clip here so people can kind of get an idea once we have it later. But um, we got him right away, and he's still like on this major high of accomplishing this goal and getting the team a win. So he hit a home run. I think it was off Jordan Romano. And interesting enough, we're in Toronto now and playing the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think Romano's on the IL. But anyways, he hit a home run off Jordan Romano, which is he's one of the best closers in baseball, at least top 10, I think, right now presently. And I think my question was something along the lines of like, what was your, what was your mindset in that moment? Like, what were you thinking? And he says, "Please be effing fair." Like he just said it live on the air, and it was like, whoa, it was like shocking, but at the same time, it was, I guess, in that moment, so acceptable because it was like his raw, unfiltered thought process, which is, what we were asking for, and it was one of those things that people still talk about to this day, and it was like in that moment of excitement, and it was one of those things where like you're like, wow, I'm in this, and it kind of gets your blood going.
Have you guys, you just bring up a good point where you're not expecting a player to say something or go a certain way. By the way, for like fans who are like, "Oh, that was a stupid question," or "I wouldn't have asked that." I've never gotten used to. I mean, I consider myself, I try really hard to listen to the answer instead of think of my next, be ready for my next question. But you do have to be ready. You have to be ready with 3 or 4 questions.
Right.
Obviously, you're watching the period or the game or whatever, and you have to be ready. But I try to listen, and if they say something, pivot. I mean, those make the best interviews, and that's like obvious. But sometimes you have to remember too, walk-offs aren't supposed to be 2.5 minutes. You're not supposed to interviews, that is, in between periods for hockey. You're not supposed to like really get into it. So sometimes they are kind of cookie cutter because you're just trying to get a thought on the period and get out. But what you said with his answer when he dropped an F-bomb, that's one example. I'm trying to think, maybe Adam, you've had one. If you've ever been like completely caught off guard and had to pivot. And I'm trying to think if I've ever had like a player that's pissed about something. Actually, yes, and it went viral. Oh my God, I forgot about this. It went viral for the wrong reasons. It was in my first year, and Sean Corrali, who had since apologized to me many times, he's like, "I'm sorry because I went viral for the wrong reasons." But the Bruins had, and back then we used to interview them in the second intermission as well, not just the first. But they had something like 6 shots on net through 2 periods against the New York Islanders. That defensively, their system, they never got a lot of shots on net against the Islanders. So my question was pretty simple, but I asked Corrali, I was like, how do you generate more shots on net? And he was so pissed, like not at me. He was just pissed that they were playing so badly. I'm sure Bruce Cassidy, I think, maybe had a few choice words for them. And he just looked at me, like dead ass looked at me and was like, to get more shots on net, you have to shoot the puck. To shoot the puck, you have to put the puck on your stick, and then you have to shoot it at the net. So you have to shoot the puck to get more shots on net. Like he said in his mind, and I watched it 1,000 times. He was more like chirping the team, like, we just have to shoot the puck. But it sounded like he was like,
Yeah,
what a stupid question, you know? And
right.
it went
Very
viral for
matter
the
of
wrong
factly.
reason. Yeah, yeah. I think Barstool picked it up and they were like, oh, when you get asked stupid questions, you get stupid answers. I was mortified because it was like 3 months into my nesting job. But I mean, I guess I could have asked it, their 1-3-1 system is kind of clogging you up in the neutral zone. So how do you break through to maybe generate more offense? I just asked, how do you get more shots on net? And he did not like that. So that's one where I didn't know how to pivot. And I was like, thanks, bye. Like I didn't ask a follow-up, but have you guys ever had an experience like that?
If I can actually tap in on this, because this is something, baseball again is a very technical sport and there's so many mechanisms to pitching, mechanisms to swinging and going through your mechanics, right? So like I actually have a hard time with this one too, because sometimes when you're asking questions, it's just as simple as you did, like how do you do something? Because
Mhm.
for like, and I think people should understand too, sometimes that's the way to go about it, because if you try to contextualize it and do what you said you should have done, sometimes it doesn't get the most raw and real answers, because you almost are like feeding the player the information and leading them to a direction, right?
Yes, yes.
So I think what people don't understand, who are viewers and watching, they're like, oh yeah, it's just so simple. But you kind of want to get their answers on it, and it gives you context to, in this situation, how frustrated they are, the fact that they weren't getting shots on the net. And then two, about how simple maybe a task is and they're just not being able to execute. But um, sometimes I feel like when I contextualize a story too much, it also like conflates the entire thing, when it's just as simple as asking, how do you do something? And then you wait for them to answer. And obviously, I see what you mean, where it's like it's kind of shocking, so it kind of freezes you in that moment, because it kind of happened with me too, and I was able to follow up, but it puts you in a situation where you're like, what do I do here? And then you have to be fast on your toes, and you have to continue to keep the interview going in many instances. But um, it's one of those things too. Where I think that's the part that I love about the job too, the fact that I don't know what's going to come out of their mouth, and those are the type of questions that I try to get, and then I try to follow up on those topics. And then also, I don't know how these situations going to go, so I try to make myself to be a very intent listener, because if it's a situation like that where something comes out of their mouth that's in like left field, then I'm able to react in a way that feels like I'm ready for it, not just like going in there with, all right, I want to ask X, Y, and Z, and whatever he says, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to Y next, and then my formula is to go to Z and finish up this conversation. So it's kind of some of the tricks of the trade, where you got to have multiple ideals going through your mind at the same time, which is very difficult sometimes, but you
Yeah.
try to be proficient at it.
Yeah.
100%.
I
No, dude.
mean,
Go ahead, Adam. I feel like, yeah, go ahead. What's
no,
your 2 cents on this? Have you ever had that?
yeah, no, it's a great question. I was racking my brain trying to think of certain situations like that, but the only thing that I can think of, it happened this season, and it ended up at the time being kind of like, oh, really? Like that's the answer? And then it ended up being like viral, right? It ended up going viral. It ended up being like it's like, oh, it actually ended up working out. So it was the last game of the Bruins road trip in January. It was a 4-game trip. It was Colorado, it was Arizona, Vegas, and it ended in St. Louis. That
Okay.
sounds right. Yes. So it ended in St. Louis, and the Bruins, if you remember, Soph, they had a stretch where they were going to overtime or shootout like every single night, and they ended up getting like points in the first 3 games of the trip, but they were all losses, either in overtime or the shootout, right? And so this game in St. Louis, the last game of the trip, Brad Marchand had reached a milestone in the first period. I think I think it was the 900th point of his career, and the Bruins had a lead, but then St. Louis came back to tie. And you had mentioned that we used to do interviews in both intermissions, but now we typically do them in the first intermission, unless
Yeah.
you guys in the studio have a guest in the first intermission, and then that interview gets pushed back to the second intermission. And it just so happens that was one of those nights where it got pushed back to the second intermission. And those interviews, from my personal experience, Sophia, are like, oh man, like, we're getting like the last 20s on the way. These guys are focused on the game, and then they come out and they're talking to us for a couple of minutes. It's not exactly thrilling for them in that moment to be talking, doing interviews, but that's the nature of the business, and they understand that, and they do a great job. So anyway, Charlie McAvoy was my second intermission interview, and in-game interviews, he gives you answers, but they are brief a lot of the time when it's in-game. And so I had asked him, I said, you know what, like I usually do like, 3 questions. I'll do 2 on this one, right? So I asked him the first question, whatever it was. And then I just said, hey, from your perspective, what do you guys need to do to close it out? And he said, we need to win. And he was like walking away as he was saying, we need to win. And I'm like, all right. And so he ends up scoring the game winner in overtime. He ends up scoring the game winner. So he found a way to win, right? So they finish the third, they go to
Wow.
overtime, he scores the game winner. And that ended up going viral. And it also ended up in a Nesson promo.
I
So it's
remember.
kind of funny how those answers in the moment are like, oh, really? Like that's your response? And then it turned out to blow up.
I
That's
remember that,
incredible.
and watching it live, I'll be honest with you, it kind of bothered me because I was like, man, like, it's not like you had three or 4 questions and like you had to go. I was kind of like, man, like don't walk away in the middle of, you know, uh Adam's question, but like at the same time, like you said, I get it. They're focused. This team is so serious. As one of the leaders, with the A on his sweater, maybe he had something to say in the room. Because they don't go to the room first. Most of the time they come right off, the ice. You probably want to be there. So I get that. And I fully respect that. I'm not it. But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, like he really just wanted to leave the interview. And he was walking away. He's like, yeah, we got to win. And I was like, oh, I just felt bad for you because in that position, I would have been like a little awkward. I probably would have been like, man, I'm annoying him, or like he just doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
But it was more because of the way, like you said, they won, because he scored the overtime winner, because of the way the trip was going. It because it just showed how like hungry and serious and focused he was. He was like, I don't have time for this. I'm going back into the room. We're refocusing. Let's go. And plain and simple. It wasn't poetic, like, whatever the hockey cliches are. He was like, yeah, we just have to win. And I loved it so much after, but in the moment I was like, poor Adam, because I don't know, did you feel offended at all, or no? Were you like, whatever?
Yeah, you know what? So, like I had said, those second intermission interviews, I know, that it's in the heat of the game. It's a tie game. The
High
circumstances of the game where the
intensity.
Bruins had lost the first 3 games,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. And they'd gotten points in those first 3 games, but they really needed these 2 points, right? Because the narrative had talked about the Bruins not being able to close out games. And so,
Yes.
obviously, that was in the back of the players' minds going in. And again, with the tie game, you're thinking, oh man, not again. And so I had sort of prepped myself for that. I knew and I knew that was probably going to be the case. So when I got that answer, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really surprise me. But the fact that he was answering, he was like, yeah, like was kind of
Yeah.
funny, but yeah,
I'm gonna have to
so
go back and look at this
it was
now.
You'll see
yeah,
it on
man,
the
it
next
was
promo today.
yeah. So we got some time left, and I wanted to see if we could transition. And we kind of talked about interviewing players and in the heat of the moment and playing at cool venues, having the access to cool venues. How about biggest events you guys have ever covered? So, um,
Hmm.
sort of take some time to think about it, Jahmai, because I'm going to ask So first. So, what's the biggest
Thanks.
event you've ever covered?
Um, Man, I have covered a lot of different things in my career. So I would say for my Nesson career, the biggest one was the Winter Classic at Fenway. So the outdoor game, really cool. Man, if it wasn't for COVID, this really pisses me off and it makes me sad. But I know there were a lot of terrible things that happened in that time. So this is like a first world problem. But if it wasn't for COVID, the team and Nessen in my second year would have been going to play in Germany during Oktoberfest and the Czech Republic in Prague, which would have been so cool, but
Mm.
that didn't happen. So that was something that I was sad about. And then I didn't get to go to Lake Tahoe because COVID. And so we weren't traveling reporters. So the Bruins played at Lake Tahoe. So there were a couple of big, and there was one other big one that I missed out on because of that. So those would have been great, but the biggest was the Winter Classic. And then outside of Neston, I worked for Sportsnet, which is the rights holder right now in Canada for the NHL. And so I got to do a lot of all-star games and awards and the draft, which was so cool, like being on the draft floor, seeing the GMs and everyone kind of like it's fun. It's just a wild time. So that was really fun. Actually, I covered it the year Jake DeBrusk was drafted, and I was the first interview he had ever because we were the rights holder. And I think Nesson got, but yeah, the rights holder would go first. Nesson gets bumped, but I was the first interview he had. So that was really cool. And then for the All-Star game with the NHL, again with Sportsnet, you have the rights. So we had all access, and I got to be on the benches for both sides throughout the whole All-Star game. And my job was doing social media, kind of behind the scenes stuff. So you're seeing everything. The guys chirp each other, All-Star so light, right? Skills competition, the jokes, the props, like where they come out. And I'm right behind them the whole time. So that was really, really like the craziest access I've ever gotten. And lastly, hopefully, Jahmai, I'm trying to buy you time, Jahmai. Hopefully you got your answer. But
I got
lastly,
three. I got
uh,
three right now.
I got three. Okay, I'll wrap up. I think I said this on the last one, Adam. I went to Korea for the World Championship of Swimming and Diving. So it was a big, might not be a big deal for people who aren't into Olympic sports, but Olympic sports are just massive, especially internationally too. So really cool to see the media coverage there. And then I covered the World Championships of Skiing and Snowboarding in Utah and Salt Lake. And that was really, really, really a really fun event. So those are my tops for experiences in media. Jahmai.
Yeah, so I was trying to rack my brain. I was looking over here because my iPad's about to die, so hopefully I don't get cut off. But I was trying to plug it in, but whatever. So I got three that I think is my tops. And you said, "Oh, my nesting career," so I was like, "Dang, do I have to restrict it to that?" But I'm just gonna lay it out and just say over my time. And there's a few more. I'll follow it up with events I'd like to cover as far as still to go in my career. But I say one of the top ones was, obviously in U.S. culture, the Super Bowl is pretty massive. So being able to cover Super Bowl 53, the Patriots against the L.A. Rams, was pretty big for me. That was always a checklist of mine. So I was there the entire week and then got to watch the game and got to see Travis Scott perform the halftime show. And I got to say, watching the Super Bowl on TV is much better than watching it in person. I will say that
Okay.
just as from a fan perspective, because you see everything. I mean, you miss the commercials, all that. So that experience was different, but it was cool to check that one off the list and then be on the field when the confetti was falling and like players are walking and being with their families. I interviewed Tom Brady's dad. I was like walking the length of the field with Duron Harmon after because it was 13-3, so like the defense played exceptional and they basically like shut down the greatest show on turf 2.0 essentially, which what the Rams were that year, and they scored 3 points. So that was pretty phenomenal. Early on in my career, I got one of the highs that has yet to be duplicated. I'm a huge basketball guy. College basketball is my thing. So I got to cover. I was in Waco, Texas at the time, and I covered Baylor men's basketball's run to the Elite Eight in 2010, I want to say. and they were a team that was on the rise. And Scott Drew was the head coach. He's still there now, but he was building up this program to something, and nobody really expected them to do much. But they had just kind of this scrappy group, a couple players who were like on the fringe of being elite. I just got a notification said I got 5%, so hopefully I'll be good.
Okay.
And they got to the Elite Eight and they lost to Duke, who ended up winning a championship that year. I think that was 2010. But I was sitting right behind Duke's bench. So I kept getting a lot of texts from friends and family like, dude, we see you on TV. Because I was sitting right behind Coach K. And he was like calling his plays. And this was at NRG Stadium in Houston. So they had the elevated court. So you can kind of like see my head basically about what you're seeing here right now. And I got a lot of TV time that day on CBS, which was, broadcast probably internationally. But great Baylor team and such a fun run to kind of go with them the entire way because started the season with them and then to see where they ended up and came up just short, but I love March Madness, so that was pretty cool, being a college basketball guy. And then the third one I would say is so yeah, Super Bowl, NCAA tournament, and I forgot my third one. I can't believe
Dude.
this. I got it'll come back to me. Oh man, oh my goodness, what was I gonna say?
I forgot.
This is brutal. This is brutal. Oh, no, that wasn't it. But another one just popped
Oh,
in my head, so I'll use this as my third one. This was when the I covered Texas against Alabama in the BCS National Championship at the Rose Bowl. This was also early on in my career. So like Colt McCoy was quarterback for Texas, and he got injured like in the first quarter. So Greg McElroy and Alabama was able to beat them. This might have been one of Nick Saban's first titles, actually, at Alabama. So, like, I was there, and access was so different back then because I was literally on the field for basically the duration of the game, and then afterwards, after the game, I was there as well, and like I was up in it. I was in the mix. Nowadays, like they wouldn't give you that type of access. So I feel like because of more media outlets have come out, things have been a little bit more restricted to rights holders and people of that nature, but I was just local media and I was in the mix. You know what I mean? So that was pretty exciting because I was like, is it always like this? This is crazy. But that was a pretty big one in my career. And I'm trying to think of what that other one was. But man,
what's
I mean,
one
I've been
what's
in this
one you
business
said you
forever.
what's one you said you wanted to do? Like what's a bucket list?
Oh, bucket list is the Summer Olympic Games. I would love to be going to Paris this summer, but that's not
Mhm.
one that I. Oh, I got it.
What?
Mayweather Canelo
Ooh.
Alvarez, the only fight. So I got to cover that in Vegas, which was phenomenal because we had a fighter on the undercard who was there. And I would, if you guys have never been to Las Vegas for a fight weekend, it is one of the things you must do. It is absolutely amazing. I'm talking about big, big, big money fights like a Floyd Mayweather type. So I got to cover Mayweather Canelo when Canelo was early on in his career, and it was a clinic that Floyd put on. He used to handpick his opponents, but being in Vegas for fight weekend was amazing, and I'm a huge boxing guy as well. So that was up there. One of those pinch me moments where like you're sitting ringside essentially, and you see all these celebrities, actors, and people coming through to watch this, and you're like, this is awesome. So
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. I got to cover
Really
another
Nice.
Pacquiao fight later as well. So two of those big guys in the sport.
Really quick, Adam, before you jump in, because you got to give us yours really quick, but I forgot as well. I covered UFC 150 in Toronto. So it was in Toronto, and it was John Bone Jones versus Jonas Gustafsson. And it went to a decision. Like it was, if you look it up, it's still one of like the closest fights you'll ever see. Both of them went to the hospital
Yeah.
after, like both of them super respected each other. And the crowd, the vibe, the talking to Dana White at the time, I was pretty green in the industry, but that was a pinch me moment where I'm like, wait, they trusted me with this? Like I didn't grow up learning a lot about UFC, but it was in Vegas, but it was an unreal experience.
I remember that fight. That was close, and many people will say that John Jones lost, and he was
Yeah,
this invincible guy, and they didn't expect that. So that would have been a big one. I've covered a few
yeah.
UFCs
All
too.
right, I
That's
I got
awesome.
to jump in because we have like 30 seconds left. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
poor Adam.
it's all right. Game 6 of the 2013 World Series out on the field. Sarkozy closed things out. The
No.
Red Sox, first time in a century, the Red Sox had won the World Series on their turf, which was awesome. I've covered a lot of cool things. That one stands out. I'm not going to do my top three because we're running short on time, but I will say
Sorry.
one of the coolest
Sneak
things,
it
and
in.
having been somebody in the media, somebody from Boston working in the media, covering all these victory parades, seeing like million people on the streets of Boston, being in the mix, all those crowds, unbelievable. So those parades themselves after the championships are huge. So I'd have to say the victory parades are pretty awesome. But that wraps up our time, man. It was good to have the trio back together, the band back. Maybe next week. I think we're might be all back next week.
I certainly
We
am.
are. I am
All right,
too.
awesome. That's it. Cool. That's all the time
All
we
right,
got.
Adam.
Catch us on Spotify. Catch us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. That's where you can get extra time. So until then, I'll see you guys next week. Take care.
All right, man.
Bye.
Peace. What a knockout episode.